Hi everyone, welcome to our third generic mentor information training video for the year. If I do a bit of this, it's because I'm on two screens, so apologies if I start looking in the other direction. Right, let's get straight onto it. So this training video is meant to be watched on from Monday the 23rd of January. It'll be on our website from then. Please watch it before your subject-specific meetings, which are happening the week after. This is for all mentors to begin with, and I'll explain in a minute what I mean by that. So every mentor, placement 1, placement 2, should be watching this. And then at a certain point, those of you that aren't mentoring in placement 2 can bob off. And then I'll be left with just the placement 2 mentors to discuss the stuff about timetables and stuff. But to begin with, so I'm just going to introduce myself. My name's Branagh. For those of you that don't know, if you're a new mentor, welcome. You've probably already met me, but you might have watched this before the new mentor training. So like I said, this is live from the 23rd of January. Please watch as soon as possible if you can. Hopefully I'll try and keep it to half an hour, but there's quite a lot to get through today. So I'll do my best. I'll do my best to keep it short. Onwards, see. So as always, this is a generic training video that it applies to everybody. It doesn't matter what course your trainee is on, salaried, training, teachers, it doesn't matter. It applies to everyone. But if you're part-time or you've got a trainee on the salaried route, it could be that they've got slightly different dates. So please do be sure to check the programme, check with your tutor if my dates seem a little different to what you're expecting. But if you're on the normal school direct training or PGC route, this is definitely all for you. Now, I'm going to do this in 3 parts. So the first bit's for everybody. It's about writing the Phase C report form that we've got now on PebblePad. The second bit is about moving trainees on. So that's also for everybody. There's that part 3 bit there. That's for everyone because we're going to do the Zoom meetings again, for those of you that have been with us before. And then those of you not mentoring, sadly for us in placement 2 can go, and then I'll just have the placement 2 mentors with me to talk about settling them in. We're going to talk about belonging, how you can make them feel a member of your school. We got big push on questioning, as you know, and then there's just a bit at the end that's just for school direct mentors because we really want to make the most of those 6 weeks. Right, so as usual, huge thank you. I looked at cats and dogs and already thank yous. They just seemed a bit trite, really. And I thought with everything going on, something calm. This is supposed to be calming. So this is our calm, lovely blue waterfall that I'm sure we'd all love to jump into right now, somebody warm. But we are so grateful for you sticking with us. It's been tricky. We know it's tricky out there for you. It's been a bit tricky for us too. But we are so grateful that you stuck with us. Thank you ever so much. And hopefully you've really enjoyed the training and being a mentor this year with us. So part 1, bit of news. As you know, you've probably noticed by now, I do like an evaluation, right? So I like to get one out there to see how things are going. A lot of you will have done evaluations for us in the past. And I'm going to use sort of uni type word. I like to triangulate, right? So it's what I'm getting feedback from tutors about stuff to do with your verbal feedback, your written feedback, and how that's changing over the year, and especially linked to the CCF. Obviously, that's really important for us, as is subject specificity. Difficult word to say. Being subject specific in our feedback. And we've also done now one for the trainees to let us know, are you linking things to the CCF, which is so important? Are they getting their weekly mentor meeting, all that kind of stuff. Now, caveat before I show you the numbers. Obviously, some trainees are part-time. Now, what I haven't done is separate them out, but it does mean that if we're slightly less than 100%, there's normally a reason why. All right. So mentor's been off sick, or they have a timetable where maybe the mentor can only watch them once every fortnight. So the question didn't really capture everything, but let's have a look at the headline numbers. So they're really good. So thank you. Okay. Now, I just want to remind everybody that weekly observation it's essential. It's absolutely essential. Now, I asked them, are you getting a weekly observation with your mentor? Now, some of them might have said no, because actually they're getting 1 week from their mentor and 1 week from another experienced member staff. That's absolutely fine. I've got no problem with that. That's real. And most of them have written a little note about that. Some of them are part-time as well, so maybe that's why it's not as regular as the sort of standard of once a week. Now, where we can make a difference, where we can make a real difference is the use of the CCF. Now, the numbers are still storming. I think they're absolutely brilliant. And remember, this is a trainee's interpretation of, is my mentor using the CCF? So you may well be, but to them, they're like, yeah, but you didn't exactly use that language. Now, we've always steered away from, it's not a tick box. You don't have to use exactly the same language. However, if we are using the phase help sheets that go out, right, and they're out in front of you when you're doing the verbal feedback and you're doing the written feedback, and you're making sure that your observations are linked to the strand of the CCF, there's no trainee that could come back and say, yeah, it's not linked to the CCF. Okay, so some of you are managing, and it's absolutely awesome, to be always using the CCF despite not using the help sheets. I'm not worried about you guys. You've nailed it. It's brilliant, right? They're only there to help if it's not embedded in your practice. But if you're one of the mentors that is regularly linking, but maybe not all the time, I thoroughly recommend printing up the phase sheet, help sheet, and then that's got the CCF language really clear on there and the level the trainee's got to be at. And then I reckon we can go from often to always using the CCF. So it's you guys there that I think we can capture and make sure that everyone's using the CCF, because we've got lower use of the help sheets than we have linking. So some people, Brill, nailed it, but we can bring that up to 100% if we all use the help sheets. Mentor meetings happen regularly. The one I love, this one here, 96% of our trainees are saying that they're getting on-side, non-judgmental mentoring, right? Linked to the Hobson stuff, okay? So that's brilliant. You're not assessing them in a judgmental or sort of old summative assessment way. It's very much assessment for learning that we're doing, that the feedback that you're giving is developmental and supportive. So thank you. Huge thank you to that. But let's get those sheets being used overtly, yeah, right in front of them. Now, we want you, obviously. We have been trying over the last few years to get more mentors to volunteer to present at subject meetings, okay, or to do what I'd really like you to do is to maybe do some little short videos or something. So can you have a think about how you can contribute to our community of mentors? Maybe you feel, and I know we've got mentors out there, you're just not very good at selling yourselves. You feel that this year you've really nailed your questioning, you've nailed your verbal feedback, and you might want to discuss that with other colleagues, and you could do me a little short video. If you feel that you want to do that, then please, 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 please get in touch with me, and I'd love to hear from, and so would your subject specific mentors. They'd love to hear from you to do a little slot in their subject meetings. Now, paperwork time, okay? Now, I'm doing this here so that your subject tutor doesn't have to do it in their subject specific meeting. All right, let's get this, give the admin to me, right? So that's what this bit is about. Now, little bit of dates and bits here. Okay, so it's, oh, I'm so sorry, press the wrong button. So I really, really, really recommend that you start this process earlier than we all did with phase B. Christmas comes up and just smacks us in the face, right? You're like, whoa, where did that come from? This time, we want them to really think about what they're writing, because that's what they're going to take to their next placement, all right? So really detailed feedback. I'll give you a good example in a sec. They've got to start it early. The night before, you're just going to get blah, 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 and it'll just be rubbish, all right? We don't want that. We want it to be meaningful, detailed, strengths and targets and evidence. They've got to now start to think about evidence. That's the stage they've got to. Now, it's due after half term, but that's the PTs getting it to us that Monday. So I reckon, reeling it back, the week of the 30th of January, I know it's around the corner. So the week of the 30th of January is when I think we've got to start saying to the trainees, got to start drafting this, got to start thinking about specific evidence where you think that you've had that entitlement of the CCF and you've met the standard, not teacher standard, the standard that it's asking for. Now, remember, they're slightly different. Some of them, it's about, I can do it, which I'll show you in a second. Some of them is, with the help of expert colleagues, I can do that. So let's steer them from the 30th. You've got to check their evidence. Please don't let them upload something that you haven't looked. You've got to, we're not signing it off. You don't have to sign a little bit of paper, but you need to own what they put in there, right? Now, some trainees and B, we're putting 30 pieces of evidence for each CCF strand. It's That's nonsense, right? We don't want that. And some are only putting one. That's not enough either. A whole term's work for a whole strand of the CCF, I don't think one lesson plan is going to cut it. Do you? That doesn't say I know how to do retrieval or deal with cognitive load from one lesson plan. Don't think so. So we want quality evidence that shows they've made that progress. Now, we do want you to be as positive as possible. In some of the examples I looked for B, when I looked across cohorts, I'm getting simple little lines. Doesn't sum up a whole term's work, okay? You'd be upset if someone wrote one line about a whole term of you. So positive about where they've made progress. They have. And if they hadn't, they'd be on a support plan or they'd be out. So they have made progress. They have moved forward. Again, remember, we are not assessing. We are looking at where they were, where they are now, and what they've done and what evidence they've got to prove it. So we're coming from a very positive, supportive, collegial space, right? We are their colleague. And that's what this on-site mentoring is all about. No judgy, just support, just feedback and questions that help them move forward. All right. And there's this lovely bit here from Kunamara Simmons, which it's, coaching, networking, counseling, guiding. None of those say assess. None of those are cruel words. They're nice words. They're supportive, carry you along words. Okay. So that's the kind of tone we're looking for. Now, what evidence are we looking for? You've been looking at their planning. You'll see their planning every week because they send it to you 24 hours in advance or 48, whichever your school does. You've done the weekly observations linked to the CCF, so you know that they've been living up to their entitlements, okay? You've been in the mentor meetings, they're CCF linked, so you know where they've met it there. We've come along and done a visit, so we've QA'd your feedback. It's all good there. And don't forget the phase help sheets. Now, they help you to see what level they're supposed to be, remember. Now, most of this should be driven by the trainee, all right? They decide their evidence. They decide where they've met the strands that will link much later on to the teacher standards. That's up to them, okay? Now, here's your sheet, right? So here's the phase C. So this is what we're going to use to see where they are. So please study it, circle it, do whatever you need to do with it to see where your trainee is. Don't forget these questions. I reworded them because they were a little clumsy, weren't they? A little clunky before. These hopefully have helped this placement to really focus your mind. Now, you shouldn't be doing any more telling. No more telling, just asking. So for the rest of placement one in this phase C, I always think they've got to be like an interview where you sort of sit there and go, yeah, but how did you do that? Oh, talk to me about that, kid, right? Not, and at 11:10, you did this, and 11:12, you did this. Let's get rid of that. Let's leave that. Just sit and ask. And almost you could use your feedback sheet at the moment to think, I'm just going to write questions. I'm going to say that something's happened and then I'm going to write a question. So really think, unless you've got the talking spoon, you don't get to talk. If you're very young, you might not know about the talking spoon. But unless you're holding it, you're not allowed to talk. So maybe the mentor should think, I don't even hold a spoon. It's just about the trainee. They're doing all the talking. You're listening, formulating your next question. That's really our mantra for these next 4 weeks. Question, don't tell. Okay, ask, don't tell. Now, this is where we look to see what level they are. Now, do be careful with this because a very good trainee can sometimes look like they're brilliant. You're like, oh, but you're not good at that. The wording of the phase sheets helps you to see, should they be good at that at this stage? Remember, it's not this for trainee teachers. It's up and along like that. Okay, we've got those models that I've shared with you earlier in the year. So I can reflect with greater autonomy on my progress. Now, this is where, yes, you're doing it on your own. Autonomy, remember, was the buzzword that we talked about in our last video. I'm assuming more responsibility. I maintain clear things. I can plan individual lessons. Where they're still in need of support, because, the year doesn't end now. They're still training. They still need us, thankfully. So under the supervision of expert colleagues, I can deal with parents and carers. I'm developing my talk, discussing about misconceptions, seeking opportunities. So be mindful. When you're writing your strengths, are they at the right level? when you're writing the targets, is it also about an opportunity that they haven't had that you want to articulate to the placement 2 mentor? You know, they haven't had a chance to do this. That could be a target, as well as something to do with their actual practice. So I've said it already. Look at that physical evidence. Please don't sign it off without having had a look. So look at their plans and resources. Now, really, they're presenting to you their best examples. Great practice for the RPK assignment at the end of the course as well. We're not so interested in where it's gone badly. The badly was part of the journey to doing it better, okay? So don't get hung up on, yeah, but like those 3 lessons were dreadful. Of course they were. They're a trainee teacher, okay? Get hung up on, yes, those lessons really were some of the worst I've ever seen. But the next lessons after, you went away, you reflected, you thought about it, and hey presto, it got better. And also your feedback was so amazing after those not so good lessons that they went away, they had to think, oh no, that's great advice, mentor. Off I go, I'm doing better, right? If they don't write enough, don't sign it off, okay? So if you have a look before we do, and you go, oh, come on, this is so weak, I haven't written enough. You get an email to your tutor, your linked tutor, and say, have a look at that, right? Hopefully we've already noticed, but just in case. And just don't sign it off. Don't sign it off until it's ready. Don't sign off something you're not proud that they've done under your guidance. Okay, right. Here's some examples from B, ones I've just seen. Now, this is a trainee. Let me just move this out of the way. They're specific about their evidence, right? They're saying exactly where it's come from. Now, I've seen some where it's like, you know, I taught some lessons and in all my lessons, I do retrieval. And I'm like, well, you're supposed to. We want to hear about the top-notch examples that link to this strand, right? And that's part of professionalism sometimes, is making that choice. And this is master's level after all. You know, that's about choice, not just study, choosing what to study. So this is a really nice one. We've got a class, we've got a unit there. We've got a particular class that they're talking about. They're talking about the CCF and it's woven in that CCF, but it's specific. It's a specific example. Now, they don't have great examples by the end of phase B, but they should do by the end of phase C. So specific pinpoints in their time with you with like, no, that really epitomizes me and strand 2, which is all about retrieval and memory and cognitive load. Okay. Now, here's an example of what a mentor has said, God bless her, so good, about her trainee. Now, this reflects a term's worth of work to me. We did talk about that with the phase B, didn't we? That, you know, they've done this much work. They don't deserve this much of a comment about how well they've done. It's not really very fair, right? So this mentor's really gone for it, okay? She's one of mine, she's awesome. And she's written loads and it's CCF linked and it's all going on and it's really positive. It's really positive. Now, you might look at that and go, there's no way I'm going to write that much. That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. But I reckon if we reach for the stars, we might get the moon, all right? If we only reach for the top of the tree, I'm still on the floor. So this is great. This is great. This trainee can go away thinking, I know I've made an impact. I've made a dent in my mentor. Do you know what I mean? My mentor knows me. But I'm trying to say, let's not have one line. Yeah, let's get detail about this trainee. Now, individual comments here. They're really linked to the CCF, right? Now, it helps you in the phase form anyway, doesn't it? Because you've got to tick that box that says, which bit of the CCF am I talking about? But these are also using the language, right? Behavioural expectations, homework expectations, high standards. I love this drama one. It's absolutely wonderful. It's talking about drama-specific assessment, which honestly, when I read it the other day, I felt slightly woozy. It was so marvellous, right? So it's talking about assessment through the drama lens, right? They're looking at it all as a drama teacher. So that would be brilliant. The history one here as well. It's a history-specific one about understanding how pupils learn. So they're starting those strengths with the language of the CCF. I love it. I love it. So well done to these mentors. They're the bomb. Okay. Another couple here. They're longer. They're awesome. Okay. So this one again is talking about looking at target grades. I mean, it's really nice because it's really specific, this one, about you've got this high attaining group who they've got to get 9s. That's their target. And you're aiming them at 7. You know, they're going to go up here, not down there. Okay. It's good enough. Reach. Yeah. Really specific with that one. And again, look, obviously, these targets are about assessment in lots of ways, because that's not something that they're going to be very good at the end of phase B. All right, one last one. Couldn't be more CCF if it tried. It's brilliant. Modeling, AFL, promoting good progress, explicit activity, cognitive load, working memory, long-term memory. It's absolutely awesome. It's exactly what we want to see about that strand too. So well done to that English mentor as well. Brilliant. Now, remember, we are never summative. We are never summative. We're never going to be ever again. It's brill. It's formative. These strengths and targets are to help them to get better in a developmental way. All right. We are on their side, not judgy. Colleagues together, one experienced, one novice, working together to get better. All right. That's what we're looking for. Okay. Can't hammer that enough. Right. Now, it's swap time, isn't it? So your trainee, if you're a placement 1 mentor, your trainee's moving on. Placement 2, they're coming to you. Okay. Now, we did this last year. I reckon about 50%-ish of our trainees actually did it. We ran it as a pilot. I love calling things pilot, as you know, because then if it goes wrong, it doesn't matter. It's a pilot. Okay. But actually, the mentors that did do it, in their feedback to me, were like, that worked really well. So we're doing it again. We can't have trainees coming to visit you and zooming all over the countryside and missing their timetable. It's an organizational headache for you too. So we're not going to do that. Bringing everybody together for the launch at this time of year was never a massive success. We'd maybe have a third of people come and then we've got no one to pair you up with. So this is what we designed last year. So meeting in a Zoom. Now, it's the trainee's responsibility, not yours, okay? So they will get in touch with their placement 2 mentor, connect them with their placement 1 mentor, and they'll organize a convenient time for you all to do a Zoom, okay? Now, I know, a bit awkward, but it does work. Now, you two will talk. So placement 1 mentor and placement 2 mentor will talk together first. Now, it's really important that the trainee isn't listening to that they're in a breakout room. We had one last year where it was one of our trainees in science. They just wouldn't go. They just didn't go. You've got to be quite firm and say, no, we're talking not with you right now. You go and sit in a breakout room and we'll bring you back in when we've had a chat. Okay. The existing mentor takes the lead, obviously, because they know about the trainee. Talk about their gaps. So they haven't had a chance to do this. They haven't had a chance to do that. Now, because our placements are properly contrasting, what they don't get in placement 1, especially with regards to the CCF entitlement, they have to get in placement 2. So we've mapped it very carefully that if they were in a school where there were no EAL, they're now hopefully in a school where there are EAL. Now, with School Direct, you also have to take that responsibility that it is a proper contrast. Now, when I talk about timetables later on, if you feel the schools are somehow similar, you can contrast with their timetable, okay? But the school should be a proper contrast. You'll discuss their strengths. Please do be positive. Please do try and err on the side of, they're good at this, they can do this, rather than being negative about the trainee. That trainee's moving on. You know, if there's something very important that you need to say about professional conduct, that the next mentor can go, right, okay, forewarned, I'm going to raise the, really get the bar high, spell out the expectations. Of course, that's absolutely fine, of course, and it's a must. But about their actual teaching, let's celebrate what they've done rather than come from a negative angle. Now, 96% of our trainees believe that you are on side. So I know that that's going to happen. Okay. So when you've had your chat, trainee comes in, existing placement 1 mentor, you can then pop off. Yeah. And lead them together to sort out what they need to for moving on. And placement 2 mentors, I'll talk more about this in a sec. Okay. So I'm going to just do some dates before I let Placement 1 mentors go. Like this, just move this again. Sorry, add many bits. So they're going to find out about their placements on January the 20th. I'm making this Wednesday the 18th. Okay, you'll soon realise it's a bit of a special day. So January the 20th, hopefully they'll find them all out. We've got a few gaps. We'll get them sorted. It's always the way. They're going to get a plan this Friday. Actually, I'm doing it earlier than I put on here for reasons that will become clear. Once you watch this video, you'll realise what's going on with us. So they'll get a plan on Friday, a written plan and their own video to say, how do you move on to placement 2? What do you need to do, right? There's subject-specific meetings on the week of January the 30th. Now, it's a strike week, okay? It's a strike week, so a lot of meetings were going to happen on that Wednesday, which is our strike day. So if you think you've got a date, please check your emails because it's probably changed. That is just for placement 2 mentors, just for placement 2 mentors. There's no point in a placement 1 mentor coming to that meeting. You can if you want to, of course you can, keep up your CPD, but you really don't have to. You will meet with your new trainees. If you're placement 2 trainee, placement 1 trainee, will meet with their 2 mentors, placement 1, placement 2, the week of either the 30th of Jan or the 6th of Feb. So we've given them a 2-week window, probably important, right? So they've got a bit more time to sort it out. And don't forget, Phase C is due to us, already signed by the PT, on the 20th of February. Now, we've had a few late Bs. Shouldn't be happening, really shouldn't be happening. So please, can we be on it with the timings? Thank you. Okay, quick reminder about where all the forms are. There's our website, partnership. We're in between partnership coordinators at the moment, so just use the normal email address. And as always, anything to do with partnership, please contact Keith. Reminder that we've got our handbook, but actually the big one for you is the Mentor and Professional Tutor Guidebook, which is also on our webpage and necessary for placement 2 to see what's happening in your mentor meetings. Okay. If you're not mentoring in placement 2, thank you so much for mentoring for us in placement 1. I really, really appreciate it. So do our trainees, so do our tutors. We are forever grateful for the awesome work and support that you give the new teachers coming out into the world. Okay. Thank you so much. You can stop now. You can go have a cup of tea. All right, moving on. Okay. So I'm left now, I presume, with trainees that, mentors that are working with us just in placement 2. And this next section, part 4, is about preparing for your trainee and then settling them in, all right? And then later on, I'm going to talk to you about what our big Sussex push is for this next term. Now, the really big thing about preparing your trainee is about making them welcome. It's just the most important thing you can do, actually, as a mentor, is I put these little pigeons down here. They need to feel safe. They need to feel like they belong. They need to feel a part of this family quickly. Now, they've bonded hard with placement 1, all right? They, one of my trainees the other day was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I just want to stay where I am. I'm like, well, tough. You know, you're moving on. You've got to. It's for your own good. Yeah. So they're a little bruised when they come because they've got to all that work they put in. They've got to know the kids. They've got to know their mentor. They're comfortable. But that's why they've got to move on. They're comfortable, right? It's time to give them a shimmy. Now, either you've got a PGC trainee, in which case you've got them for quite a long time, or you've got a school direct trainee who you've got them for 6 weeks, right? They got to feel a sense of belonging very quickly. You haven't got time to build it up, all right? So their welcome's probably even more important than it is for the PGCE. So what do we need to do? You've chatted to the mentor, you know quite a bit about your trainees. You've chatted to the placement 1 mentor, and it's time to have a look at the CCF, all right? And have a think about, so there'll be a phase D help sheet that will be with you ready for the start of placement 2. So you can see where your trainee will be from their phase C report. You'll have their strengths, you'll have your targets, you'll have the commentary from their mentor. You'll see their evidence as well. You'll see it all because you'll get access to their Pebble Pad, all right? So very different in the past where you couldn't see all that had happened before. You will be all seeing. Fascinating, yeah? So you then have to have a think about, what does this trainee need? Now, if you're a new mentor and you're not sure, you chat to your tutor, you chat to your subject tutor. If you're in science, you email me or Susie. If you're in English, email Sue, etc. All right, you get in touch with them. What does this trainee really need? Because the whole point of 2 placements is contrast and bringing balance to the force, right? They might have had lots of top sets in their first placement. We got to give them some possible lower attaining sets where they're going to flex those SEND muscles, hopefully have some EAL kids if they didn't in placement 1. Got to fill their boots. Okay, now school direct mentors, I'm going to keep you behind at the end. You haven't been naughty, don't worry. Just keep you behind at the end to have a real focus on what can you do in 6 weeks. The answer is a lot, and also not that much. So we've got to be careful, all right? But it is about making that balance between placement 1 and placement 2. Now, I'm going to whiz through this really, really quickly. A bit worried about time. D's about moving on, right? But they won't settle in very, very quickly. It'll take them a bit of time. That's a 12-hour timetable. That's what you're designing. 12 hours over 5 days, okay? You've got to keep slots for meetings in there, observations. I've talked about contrasting. They've only got 3 Fridays at uni from when you get them after February half term, which is grand. So you just plan a timetable where they're in on Fridays, and then those 3 Fridays are the only ones they won't be teaching. Please be careful if you're in a post-16 subject like business studies, media, computing, to make sure that your timetable allows the trainee to be compliant, okay? Now, this is the way to scaffold it. Week 1 is just induction. Please don't make them teach anything week 1. They won't know what to do. 4-ish lessons. You'll be able to size up your trainee when you first meet them and see whether you think they can cope with 4 or whether you might want to bring it down. We're looking to get to 12 lessons within 6 weeks, which will take us up to Easter. Okay. Now, it's just a rule of thumb. It's not carved in some magical biblical stone somewhere that they have to get to 12. It's not. Okay. We would like them to. And if they're not, it probably means something isn't quite right. Okay, so you get in touch with us and let us know. Now, I'm going to come to a word in a sec, but it basically practical wisdom, right? This is a guidance. This is an outline. If we need to move it for the trainees' benefit and therefore the kids' benefit, then we do, right? No stone tablets. We're fluid because we're on side, okay? And we want them to succeed. So we're not bound by our rules, yeah? We can spread out a bit. Now, they do need an induction. Your professional tutor will worry about that, okay? Sorry, I am going to go over time. I'm so sorry. They need class data. They need time with you. That's the most important thing. They need space to work, and they've got to feel like they belong. I said that before. Now, their APK is due on the 23rd of February. I don't want any of you knowing about that, okay? In placement 2. Nothing to do with you. Your job will be their RPK assignment, not their APK. We don't want anyone having a day off that week, that first induction week. We don't want anyone doing their APK in the staff room. That's an instant and an email to a tutor, okay? It's got to be. Please don't let that happen. Now, our push, yeah, I'm apologising. I'm going over. There was a lot to pack into this in half an hour. Sorry about that. We can add a bit more on your timesheet or something. So our push for phase D is ask, don't tell, right? We're not telling them we're hardly telling them anything. Now, that's difficult when they first arrive, you know, because you're going to have to tell them how your school works and what the behaviour management policy is. You can't just sit down and go, so what's the behaviour policy of this new school? That's not going to work. So remember, practical wisdom, phronesis. I'm going to have a slide in a sec about that. We got to get that CCF at 100%, right? Every single mentor talking about it, using it for their feedback, verbal and written, non-negotiable. And you got to check their evidence. So independence and personal reflection is what they should be at this stage. Autonomous teachers. To begin with, they're going to find that difficult because they're brand new. You're going to help them through that. You're going to use lesson debrief and mentor meetings in a much more interview style. Now, I don't like that word because they're not interviews, but I couldn't think of another one. So it's what I'm left with, right? Where you sit there and you go, so tell me about that kid over there. Use the help sheets. Use the questions at the bottom of the phase D help sheet, okay? It's a debrief. Let's try and get rid of that word feedback. it's debrief. They tell you, right? It's a coaching model, instructional coaching model. Now, once you get used to your trainee and you see them teach more, what you'll end up doing is not talk. You don't need to talk about everything that happened in a lesson. It's not necessary. You'll pick one aspect, probably behavior to begin with while they're settling, and say, right, I want you to talk to me about your seating plan and how you decided on doing that, and just stick with it. And then they'll learn through their reflection and talking to you. Try and avoid giving them the answer, right? It's got to come from within. And that's what coaching is. We have a different view of coaching in education than they do in business. So be careful of that. We use mentor and coach the other way round. All right. So instructional coaching is focusing on one aspect and drilling down into that, and then just leaving the other stuff to work itself out on its own. Let's not pepper them with loads of targets that they've got to work on. That's a placement one thing, not a placement two. Right. They've got to keep observing. That's a CCF entitlement, which is also CCF responsibility. Entitlement works both ways. Their entitlement is also part of their responsibility. Seeing expert colleagues do things, but it doesn't have to be whole lessons. Could be entrances, could be plenaries, could be questioning sections. They go in, see that, come back out again, right? They have to keep using the Sussex forms, lesson plan forms. You guys have to use our observation forms because they're all CCF linked. If you go off, chances are what you've got as a replacement isn't CCF linked, has to be, okay? Please, can you hand over that lesson plan observation form much quicker than some people have been doing, all right? So within 24 hours, they need it fresh. Otherwise, it's, for some people, I think it's been quite a while until they've got it back. So please. And we'd like to see 100% of the trainees saying that their mentors using the CCF in my next evaluation, which will be not long after they start placement two. They're going to get another one soon, but placement two, I'll do it quite quickly. Okay. Mentioned this before, evidence matters. They need evidence for their RPK when eventually we deal with the teacher standards. They need to produce excellent lesson plans and resources. They need evidence of marking and assessment and evidence of professional engagement. All right. So going to parents' evenings, although a lot of them will have already happened, but they've got to get involved and get evidence to show they've done. This is this word, right? So this is our word of the term, right? Phronesis. Now, I got a degree in zoology and I went to school in the 80s and it was the era that grammar forgot. So I'm constantly learning new words. And if you think, good God, you didn't know that word before, I'm just going to admit it, right? I came across it in a paper and the sentiment made sense. I understood what they were talking about, but the word, I was like, this word's awesome. And it's something that it's so cool for mentoring because it's doing the right thing at that moment for your trainee, which ultimately is for our children, right? It's not about sticking to the rules verbatim because the rules are there to obey. It's about, we've got the structure works, but if your trainee needs us to move a little bit away from the structure, they need a flexible approach. This is where this comes in, and it's necessary in everything we do, right? We want our trainees to succeed. And that means that we need practical wisdom in what we do to see the big picture and work out how to help them. And I love this quote, this thing from Biesta, which is, trainees aren't acorns, right? An acorn will become an oak tree if you give it the right nutrients, right? They're not acorns. They could become whatever they want to become. It's not fixed. Their destiny is not fixed. We can help them. So they could have had a slightly unpleasant placement one, right? But they come to you in placement two and we're going to make it work. Yeah, they are going to reach their full potential. They are going to actualize, but only if we're flexible. All right. That's really, really important. We help them manage their workload. We help them with their health. We help them with everything else that seems to be coming along with a few trainees at the moment. All right. So if you're ever unsure about which rule is non-negotiable, that's when you email the mentor, email the tutor rather. And if you don't get a quick response, you email me. Okay. So Branagh at Sussex, okay, and I'll help you with it. Now, this next bit is just if you're school direct, so it wasn't too over for the rest of you. Apologies for being a little bit over, gob on a stick. So school direct mentors only, stay behind now, the rest of you, bye-bye, and thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all really, really soon. Okay, school direct, here we go. You got 6 weeks. What are you going to do in 6 weeks? So they will have gaps, right? you got to see where those gaps are. And what you've got to look at is what the gaps are, your school, and then think, how can my school and the available timetable I've got help this trainee work on that gap? Okay. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes they haven't taught enough SEN, and you just give them a whole bunch of groups that you've got that have significant barriers to their education, right? You do that. It could be that behavior has been put as something they need to work on, and you'll find a timetable that gives them balance of, we've got some very skitty younger ones and some quite tricky older ones, and I want them to really hone in on school policy, calling parents, all that stuff that goes with that. All right. So it's an intense practice. It's not 6 weeks where they just go somewhere and float around for 6 weeks and come back out again. This is their chance to get an alternative placement. It can't be spaffed. Yeah. It can't just be sent away or ruined or just frittered. Okay. They need to reinvent themselves within that short period of time and work on something intensively. So please be very mindful of what this trainee needs in a short amount of time. And we should evaluate it at the end. We will be evaluating it at the end to see if they think they've learned something within those 6 weeks. Okay, so really important that they make it the best 6 weeks they can. It could be that they've been used to a scheme of work, and they need a creative injection, like I've written on here, where you're like, right, I want to see some phenomenal handmade resources. I want to see some drama in the lessons. I want to see role play. I want to see discussion. Okay, so we can really make it fruitful. Okay, so thanks again, everybody. Thanks for listening. I used to have stay safe on here. Hopefully we're all safe, but stay well. There's an awful lot of disease out there. And it's very cold, very, very cold here in my front room. So thank you again. There'll be more training coming up in phase D, so keep an eye out for that. But for now, it sounds like a teleprogram. It's goodbye from me. It's the two Ronnies, isn't it? Yeah, that's weird. Sorry. So bye from me, and I'll see you all hopefully very, very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.